No condom though. No condom though.
Either way. One more fun fact for today before we can really talk some shit. We're like 2/4 into the podcast, or 2/3 in already. But one more fun fact on the intro. In 2011, the 9/11 Museum opened in New York today. So if you've ever been in New York and you haven't seen it, it's pretty cool. I'll be honest, no disrespect to those who died.
What year was that?
2011. So I guess it was a decade and a day after the event happened. Did you go there with me when we were in New York, or did I go there a different time?
No, I was with you.
It was when you were with us,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, and people were still grieving like 10 years
Oh,
later.
yeah.
At Ground Zero, people
But,
were
yeah.
still
You know what's
emotional.
crazy about that?
Yo,
is,
it's cool. It's one of those things like the snowbirds. Once you do it once, you don't need to do it
the
again.
crazy thing about that, my dad, he was in the parking lot of the towers, like literally like 2 days before,
Say word.
because he's a tour bus driver.
Oh, wow.
And the tour was up in the fucking
Wow.
towers, and he was sitting in the parking lot.
That's crazy.
And he just got over the border when that shit happened.
That's crazy. Well, now I don't even want to get into topic. Like, now I want to ask you, because you're so close to it in relation somehow, like, how do you feel about 9/11? Like, what's your views on it? Do you think that is terrorism, or do you think it's clearly an inside job?
Inside job, for sure.
I feel like most people are on this wavelength, but you wouldn't be surprised how many people I talk to when, like, I'll be at work or some shit, or just like out in public, and I say some shit and they give me like a weird look, and I'm like, wow, this person hasn't even heard of a 9/11 conspiracy, let alone like actually done the research and look into it and to form an opinion. Like the only thing they knew is what the media told them. I'm like, whoa, like there's still people like this in 2018.
So like I'm
they're older than me.
I haven't done extensive research, but one thing that I have watched, I've done a little bit of research on it. And like when you watch the towers get hit, and like you watch a control blast, like when people
it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Do you know what the one that really I think is important to do it for anyone?
Yeah.
Is just watch World Trade Center 7 building.
Yeah, the building 7 was the one that really got me.
It's 2 blocks away, and sure, people want to make up all these arguments about the jet fuel and this and shit. Like, if you look at architectural blueprints of the 2 towers, they were built actually in 3 cores to not, like, against natural disasters and things like that. Like, they wouldn't have gone down the way they did with where the planes hit from what happened. They were built of concrete and steel, whatever you use the fucking. I'm not a fucking.
They were built like
I'm not
crazy.
a fucking. But so the things that they wouldn't even collapse the way they did. You're correct. But the thing is, a building 2 blocks away, that was also part of the World Trade Center structure, that got hit with no planes, just crumbled to the ground out of nowhere.
Oh, I didn't even know that part.
Go watch it up. World Trade Center 7.
Like I said, I didn't do the full
Built
research, but
7.
I seen something.
That's
the
what
building.
I find the most weirdest thing about the whole thing.
And there's all the other
building
things
7.
like, like the thermite fucking melting piles for like months on end, to where they couldn't even remove debris because thermite burns for so long, and thermite's used in demolition. It's not in an airplane.
But they found the guy's passport or something.
That's the one that's the fucking bomb that hit near the Pentagon. They claim a plane hit, but the whole plane evaporated except for a voice box in the car and a passport. But all the steel and everything else evaporated except a passport.
And if you look at the hole in the Pentagon, if a plane hit that, where'd the wings hit?
Exactly.
Yeah,
a bomb hit.
Thing.
Yeah, where'd the wings hit? There's no damage of like anywhere like around that hole to show where the wings would hit.
And in my opinion,
and the wings weren't outside. Like where were the wings?
Exactly. And in my opinion, this is conspiracy theorist Cal here. This is not backed up by evidence like anything else we've talked about to this point. That's why I'm stating it. But not only the wings, but you got to think about what was in that section of the Pentagon that made it okay to hit. Like, I bet you there are computers or some sort of networks in there that might have had some very incriminating information about certain people, different things. Like, there's definitely something you wanted to destroy by hitting that part. Like, you're not just choosing the Pentagon and allowing it to hit without there being something else on the other side of that, too. Like, nobody does. Like, look at me. I'm like, yo, I come to the studio, I go outside and I meet homie for tickets and I meet homie for the jacket. And I'm like, yo, 2 birds, 1 stone. You know what I mean? Like, and that's something simple in everyday life. Like, that's how you maneuver. You know what I mean? You get things done when you can the easiest possible way. And So do you think that's a coincidence that they actually were allowed to hit the Pentagon? Like, I think there's something inside the Pentagon in that section
Wow, I didn't
that
even
maybe.
think
Yeah,
I didn't even think of that. And like also,
Was it a file archive? Like, what was there? How do we really know what was in that section of the Pentagon? It was one of the most fucking protected security buildings in the USA. Did they tell us what section was hit? And even if they did, there's so many lies about everything else. Was that the truth?
And also, like that day, what was it? 4 planes, 2 hit the towers and 1 hit the Pentagon. And then there was another plane that went down.
that the people's
In the field.
In the field.
or
It's like
intervened and took
That's the one they found the passport in, if I'm not mistaken.
That's the one?
The random hole in a field, everything evaporated.
So, like, it's like
except for the voice box that recorded the conversations and one person's passport.
But
But all the metal of the plane evaporated.
Okay, so what was that plane up to, and who was on that plane?
That's another big question, and that's one thing Ian actually knows a lot about with the was it the Malaysian flight?
Yeah, the Malaysian
So tell
flight
Eddie
that
about
just-
that, because that's something you
I don't.
researched a lot.
I just thought of that now. I was like,
Tell Eddie
Well, yeah,
about
well,
the
when I
Malaysian
was-
flight.
the
You
research
I
remember
did-
the Malaysian flight,
Yeah,
right?
this disappeared.
The one that disappeared?
no.
They haven't found yet. Okay, well, there was this airplane.
It was years ago.
Okay.
Like 3-4 years
Yeah,
ago,
put-
right?
put
or
me
like
on.
maybe even 5.
And
Put me on. I'm on.
yeah, I guess apparently even after they took off, the black box was turned off. So they couldn't hear nothing after like a minute or two after takeoff. This plane completely disappeared. They never found nothing about it. No scrap, nothing. They looked for it forever. And like when I started doing some research, I found out who was on the plane, and it was like some people that build computer chips for weapon technology. Like, you know what I mean? And like, it just, I couldn't put two
and
and
it
two
was
together.
all the important people of the company. So
Yeah,
their
really high up
CEO,
people.
like the really high up people who like covered like the head of the fucking
computer chips that could like guide missiles.
and it
Basically.
was
And it
basically
just
like
disappeared.
How
Yeah.
many people did you say originally it was? Like 100 or so
I'm not sure.
people?
Yeah, it
Like-
was something like that.
Like the large
full plane.
a full plane, and a large portion of it were people who were important to this microchip company.
Yeah, and I like it's just weird that
Wow.
you still can't find anything about this plane. You know, they find like Osama in a fucking
In a cave.
whatever.
When
like,
he
you know
was
what I mean?
part of a plan.
Yeah.
That's a crazy
But they
thing.
can't find this plane.
This is another
It's like-
piece of evidence people don't look at.
They can't find out who killed Tupac in a Las Vegas strip in front of like fucking a Mike Tyson fight.
Right? But yo, do you know what the other thing is too though with 9/11? See, now it's going to start getting too conspiracy theory. But this is factual as well too. Did you know that after 9/11, the only plane allowed to fly out of the country, I believe it was for 2 days, it was a CIA or like a government plane, and the plane actually consisted of I think 36, correct me if I'm wrong, but number wise, Saudi Arabians, and I think like 80% of them or like 60% of them, they had the last name Bin Laden. And the thing is, the Bush family and the Bin Laden family were business partners in numerous companies and corporations.
I've seen
And
pictures with them.
George Bush's
Yeah, I knew
father
that
was
time.
having a meeting in New York City the morning of 9/11 with Bin Laden people, and that's why they were flown out with family members of Bin Laden. So the way that they pass it off is that like the Bin Laden family pass it off like, oh, he was our crazy AWOL son. He started a quote unquote rebel movement. This and this, but all this shit was conscribed. It was all planned. So to me personally, what happened? Ian, I think it's something else you told me about after researching. But when they finally did kill Osama, which I just thought was bullshit, but Ian's like, no, I think they actually did it. He's like, but did you know they dumped the body in the ocean
There
on
was
the
no
way?
picture of
There's
his
no picture of him
anything.
dead. He was dumped in the ocean, even though by strict orders he was supposed to come back to U.S. soil. For some reason, the soldiers on this boat or whoever was in charge was like, well, we're just going to dump it anyways.
I'm just
As
saying,
if that happens.
If I killed Osama, I'd be taking selfies. I don't care what kind of backlash I would
Right.
take. Like I don't like look how many people would respect
You want proof
that.
of that.
You want proof, right?
So to
Give me
me,
proof.
I personally don't think Osama bin Laden was ever captured or murdered, in my personal opinion. Now, they killed Saddam Hussein, but the beef was different. That wasn't an inside job. Saddam Hussein wouldn't conform to the central banking system of the planet. He wouldn't conform to American importation law, like whatever it is. You know what I mean? He wasn't following the plan. So they took him out. It's the same way they tried to take out Saddam Hussein. It's all the same shit. Do you know what the crazy thing is? 10 years ago, I read an article, And it said the 5 countries that still hadn't been infiltrated by the central banking system that basically controls and runs every other country. And the top country on that list was Nigeria. And it might have been you. I can't remember who it was, but someone I was hanging out with at the time, I was like, yo, this is crazy. Read this. And they kind of read it, whatever. I'm like, I guarantee you Nigeria is the next country America goes to war with. And what happened?
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't think that was me, but yeah, that's crazy.
And that's exactly it. It's a central banking system conformity. But we're getting too political, so let's end it off on that.